The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus spoke this parable to his disciples. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers in his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. When he went out again about noon and about 3 o'clock, he did the same. And about 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around, and he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat." But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous?" So the last will be first, and the first will be last. This is the gospel of the Lord. So this weekend we begin a new message series called "Where Do We Go From Here? Finding Strength, Grace in God in Difficult Times." One of the things that I usually do as part of my schedule on Sunday afternoon is to go visit my mom who's in town and connect. I'll have some food, and probably today I'll fall asleep watching football. So have a nap and then come back here tonight to do some work. But in my conversations with her, she hasn't gone to Mass since the lockdown in March. She's been watching Mass on television from Poland and different places where she was baptized. They live stream as well, and be able to go to Mass in Polish and that. But in conversations with her and with others, the reality is becoming that there is the question, how much longer is this going to go? People are getting tired of the restrictions, tired of all the kind of things that we have to be attentive to. This past week, Bishop Fabro released a letter to the faithful, and it's on our website, and he's just encouraging parishes, but all of us to do our part. People are tired, but this reality to protect everybody, there's constant change going on. We're adapting, we're loosening restrictions, we're increasing restrictions as there's a breakout even here in the City of London with the virus. We're missing people in terms of connections. If you're using Zoom or Teams, making phone calls, but we're not being able to connect with people. And because of the pandemic too, we're not visiting everybody for their own protection. So there is this loss of connection despite the technologies we have. We have this longing to return to the past. Pre-pandemic realities, all the different activities, all the different things and freedom that we had that right now we don't have, and probably for quite some time won't have. And this sense of this new normal. Wearing masks, sanitizing our hands, following pathways, keeping physical distancing, all these are good, all these are important things that we need to do. But the longer this goes, we have this waning on us. And we have to decide, where do we want to go? What pathway are we going to choose? A pathway of frustration, resentment, anger, complaining, and focusing in on things that we can't do? Or do we take the time to adapt, to pivot, and look at where God is going to lead us through the gift of our faith? Not only, I think, to endure all of this, but to persevere and grow in the midst of this. And it's a choice on the pathway and the road that we have to take. Now, you see the Toronto Raptors logo there. And one of the things I haven't been able to do for the most part, and haven't really missed too much, are kind of the sports. Of course, when the lockdown happened, despite the fact that we have limited numbers for Mass and different things have changed, we're very busy here at the parish doing lots of things online, but there's lots of background work that has increased kind of the way we're doing things. And I didn't even cry when the Boston Bruins got knocked out of the playoffs. I did not watch one of those games. But I did watch the last two Toronto Raptors games. I ended up having some time, and you'd see the news and saying, oh, you know what, maybe they could repeat even in this kind of modified season that they've put together. So I watched the last two games. Of course, they got knocked out, but it made me kind of remind me, of course, of my coaching years and my officiating and different things and how great this game is, but on how basketball is all about momentum. The team that controls the momentum for more parts of the game have really a better chance of winning. In fact, they'll usually win, and the game is a battle, of scoring, offense and defense, but it's all about how you control or adapt or push back and change momentum going from one team to the next. And one of the tools that a coach has is to be able to call timeouts, to huddle the team together, to stop a team's momentum. So if they're going on a run, maybe 10 points in a row, 8 points in a row, 12 points in a row, and your defense is crumbling, and you want to adjust, you call a timeout, and you slow down the other team's momentum because they're in rhythm, so you disrupt the rhythm. You huddle your team to regroup, to adapt, and try to swing the momentum your way so that you can embrace and push back with your own momentum. And you play this chess game back and forth to try to win the game. But it's all about momentum. And in the reality of where we are at right now, the momentum of the pandemic, the new normal, all the changes, all the losses, all the adapting is flowing one way. And so what do we do to change that momentum? In following the pathway of God, we need to call a timeout so that it disrupts what's going on when we seem a little bit overwhelmed and tired, to regroup and then push back and bring the momentum our way. And for us, first and foremost, we heard from the first reading, the prophet Isaiah, seek the Lord while he may be found, call upon him when he is near. If we want to follow the pathway of faith in the midst of not only the pandemic, but any of the challenges or struggles we might be going through, first and foremost, we call that time out. We need to seek God, and we will find him. And when we find him, we're going to find that he's a very generous God. But, as Isaiah says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor your ways my ways, says the Lord. Just like the coach calls the timeout and says, listen, you got to do things this way now. And he assigns the players to do different things. The players' ways are not the coach's ways. Well, we too, if we're going to call a timeout, we're going to turn to God and say, I need help. I need direction. Seek the Lord. You're going to find him. But he's going to give us a direction that is not necessarily our way. And so we have to find him and follow how he empowers, heals, strengthens, but then sends us out. Because to change momentum is not just calling a timeout, putting the other team out of rhythm. We have to create and generate a new momentum. And that becomes a very, very hard thing for us to do. In the gospel today, I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you, the landowner talking to the laborers. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous? When we seek the Lord, we find him. His ways are not our ways, and it's expressed in this gospel because he's the landowner is being unfair. And Jesus is saying God is unfair, and I say, thank God he's unfair. Because, I don't know about you, I would think if I put myself in this story, I would say, I'm the one that worked all day from 6 in the morning until night, and how come I get paid the same as the people who only worked an hour? That's probably where maybe most of us would put ourselves in. But if you take a look at the perspective of the one being called in at 5 o'clock and getting a generous gift from the landowner, if you look at it from that perspective, that's how generous God is. When we encounter him, he's generous and he's not fair. In the positive sense that he will overwhelm us with his love, with his mercy, with his forgiveness. Not that we deserve that fullness, but out of sheer generosity and love for us, he is unfair. And in his way, that's totally just. And thank God for his generosity. And that generosity inspires us into carrying that momentum forward if we're going to shift the momentum to hope, to light, to truth, to justice, to not surviving this time, but thriving and growing in this time, to be those faithful and loving disciples. We got lots of things in the parish that we're doing as opportunities for timeouts. We have our masses, reconciliation, we have our prayer path, we have the John Paul II prayer series, Lectio Divina and TED retreats online, Come From Away, online discussion, that's every 2 weeks on Thursday nights, online, or you can call in. Seasons of Hope bereavement support, it's a 6-week series going on right now every Wednesday at 3 different times. We have our Faith and Works audio and video podcasts, our online pilgrimages to Poland, the Holy Land, and in about a week and a half to Italy with Father Pedro. We have our work with the St. Vincent de Paul. We're having a Thanksgiving and Christmas, our outreach programs that we always do. We have a concert series that begins next Sunday night, Roman Roadhouse, a new series, season online, and this one's going to be a very good one. All of them are, but this one's we have 2 amazing guest speakers that are going to talk about how we endure, how we persevere in the midst of all the things that we're going through here and now. So those are the various ways the parish is trying to develop those timeouts to seek God and to find some ways. In the second reading, live your life in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. That's the pathway we're embarking in this message series. And I'm going to talk about this next weekend in week 2 of that series. But I want to give you one more example of someone who overcame and transferred momentum that was overwhelming to a momentum that was moving forward with him. And it's connected with today, Terry Fox. Today is the Terry Fox Run, done virtually this year, the 40th year since the Marathon of Hope. In his time leaving from Newfoundland to outside of Thunder Bay, he did 143 days, 5,373 kilometers. That's 37.5 kilometers a day. That's a marathon a day for 143 days. That is unbelievable. Of course, with one leg. In the Marathon of Hope, and if you know the story at the beginning, no one paid attention to who he was or what he was doing. And he slowly gained momentum as he started going into Quebec and going forward into Ontario. And then he gained more momentum eventually when he had to stop. And by the end of the Marathon of Hope that first year, he raised $24 million for cancer research. He said, I am not a dreamer, and I'm not saying that this will initiate any kind of definitive answer or cure to cancer, but I believe in miracles. I have to. He recognized and wanted to change the momentum of what was going on in his own life, but in the lives of others, and embraced this opportunity that has not only transformed this country, but the world. One of the people that was influential to the Terry Fox run that we celebrate every year is a gentleman who was CEO of Four Seasons Hotels at the time, and he got captured and inspired by Terry Fox during that Marathon of Hope. And he said this: Terry did not lose his fight. Perhaps he finished all he had to do. Terry is like a meteor passing in the sky, one whose light travels beyond our view, yet still shines in the darkest night. So as we embark on this message series, looking to where do we go from here, we want to choose the pathway of faith, of love, and of hope. In the midst of the pandemic, in the midst of the storms of our lives, it's God's way. We need to take a time out first to stop the negative momentum, the things that overwhelm us, to regroup, find our generous God, and then as we go through this series, be like Terry Fox, who then went forward to create a new momentum, which takes effort, dedication, work, and persistence. And next week, we're going to talk about faith means living life differently. And how do we do that? With God's help.